All right. And I will see you guys in a little bit.
See you soon.
Okay, stop video. All right, so we're just waiting for everyone to come in. I already see a question from Cassandra Cato. No, I can't see you, but I can tell you are in the room, so to speak. Good to see you. We will be starting in about 2 minutes with discussion, and then opening it up to Q&A at 1 o'clock. Ooh, we've got a good group here. Coming in. I feel like I should go run and get some flowers. Too late.
Use what you have.
Yeah.
I love setting up backgrounds. It's like my favorite thing to do.
I just keep forgetting. This is I think Leah and I were going through, I think this is my 10th Now and There Live. You'd think by now I would have figured out a better background. But, oh. All right, let's get started as more people keep trickling in. I want to get to you guys real fast because this is going to be, I know, a really amazing conversation. So good afternoon and welcome to the Now and There Asks conversation series. I'm Kate Gilbert. I use she, her as my pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of Now and There. I'll be moderating our conversation. Today is our 7th of 8 sessions of Now and There Asks, where we ask Boston communities the big question, what does your neighborhood need right now? Today's session brings us to Mattapan, and we're excited to have with us graphic designer and artist Ayana Mack, and Thuwaiba Thezine, creator of Ideal Mixer. Before we formally begin, hi guys, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm standing here today in Boston, Massachusetts, on the unceded land of the Massachusetts people. And as we talk about Mattapan, we acknowledge the Massachusetts people, past, present, and future, as well as the Mattapan tribe who gave the neighborhood its namesake. This program has been created to offer a supportive and proactive space for artists, cultural producers, community leaders, the public, all of you, in the face of physical distancing and public retreat. We aim to bring together all of us to open up a dialogue about what's happening right now in Boston neighborhoods, to be better listeners and to encourage action. We'll start with a 30-minute conversation that I will moderate, followed by 30 minutes of community dialogue with all of you. I will be moderating that as well, so wish us luck. We do want to include your voices in the discussion, so as questions come up, please use the Q&A feature, and in there, let me know if you'd like to ask your question live. I'll cue you up at the right moment, bring you in, and hopefully those conversations will have your voice in them. I also want to encourage you to continue using the chat. I see a few of you are already saying hello. Send us your reactions, questions, whatever you want to say as we go through, but just make sure to use, set your settings to all panelists and attendees so we all hear you, not just the panelists. So let's get started with the tough question of what does Mattapan need right now, and an introduction to our very special guests. So we'll start first with Ayana. Ayana Mack is a visual artist and senior graphic designer from Boston. For nearly 10 years, Ayana has worked with early stage and established businesses and organizations with a focus on brand development, print marketing, merchandise, product design, and much more. As an artist, she creates bright and texture-rich work to enrich communities and uplift individuals. Inspired by personal experiences, Black culture, and self-love, she shares essential messages through art while inspiring others to discover their passion. Thuwaiba Thezine is a technology professional, an entrepreneur, and the founder of Ideal Mixer, a local creative flex space designed for production use, private events, meetings, and workshops. Ideal Mixer is designed to be a space for creatives, business owners, residents, and visitors to create together. As a design thinker, Thuwaiba works seamlessly with artists, solopreneurs, residents, community organizers, and the city of Boston. If you were around last summer, you might remember Mattapan Love, an arts and cultural festival for the neighborhood that she helped organize and for which she received an achievement award from the Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council. And in 2019, Thuwaiba also contributed to BAM's Fest, Mattapan Jazz Festival, and the Urban Farm Festival Bazaar. So you can all see that we have with us two powerhouses, and I am so excited to get this conversation started. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So we in our messaging around this talk, we referenced Mattapan, the name, which derives from the indigenous Mattahunt tribe. It means either a good place to be or a good place to sit. And before we dive into the many creative opportunities that we have in Mattapan today, I'd love to learn more about you both, your family ties to the area, to Mattapan in particular, acknowledging your roots, past migrations, ancestors, whoever you would like to recognize here. Ayana, why don't we start with you?
Yes, so again, I'm Ayana Mack. I'm a native Bostonian, so I grew up here. My family's from Roxbury, and I pretty much spent most of my life living in Mattapan, where I currently live. So I went to Boston Arts Academy for high school, and I majored in visual art. Then I went to Suffolk University and got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design, and currently work downtown as a senior graphic designer, managing marketing for 6 divisions within different sectors of real estate. And basically, like, I haven't left. So I've always been here. And, I kind of thought about leaving, but the biggest thing for me is, how can I leave and try to create change in another space if I haven't done that in the space that I'm from? So that's, a little bit about me and why I'm here.
Very nice. And my name is Thuwaiba Thezine. I am a technology professional. So I've been working in technology for almost like 10 years, software mainly. My family is from the South and from Haiti, and they migrated to Boston probably in the 70s. We lived in Mattapan for, I don't know, maybe like 10 years, 15 years. I was only 4 when I moved to Randolph, where I spent a majority of my time. I graduated from Franklin Pierce, which is a school in New Hampshire. I studied creative writing and theater arts. And ever since then, I've just been really diving into the software and the art world.
So super impressive, and hats off to you guys for both staying or coming back, because I have been here for 23 years and know that feeling of sometimes you just want to leave. Thuwaiba, can you during our pre-call, you were giving us some really rich memories. Can you share those with our audience about, like, why come back to Mattapan? What were the things that were drawing you in, and those sort of early seeds that were planted?
I think Mattapan for me is just home. Like, I just remember like barbecues in the backyard and like going to the corner stores and like going to the parks and, riding on the trolley, skipping school. If any students are listening, don't skip school. But it was just like fun to be around my cousins and my friends. And I think I always had the urge to leave Boston just because I was like, I feel like my energy is just so big. So I always wanted to go, but I had the opportunity to work into software, and that allowed me to travel so much that it was actually good to have Boston and Randolph or Massachusetts just be my home. But those are some of the memories, and I feel like because of that, I wanted to make it a point to stay at home. 1518 Blue Hill Ave is where Ideal Mixer is currently located, and we're temporarily closed due to COVID. We're in phase 4. However, it's a place that is super magical. If you've never been in, I definitely encourage you to check it out online but it's something that was also passed down in the generations. So my father actually purchased this building in the 1990s, and it's something that meant so much for me. I just remember, my dad working overtime, my mom working overtime, and they're so tired and coming home, and they're like, I don't know if you could do this anymore. In terms of being a landlord, it's a tough position. But I was just like, just keep waiting until I get older. They'll make a change. And I'm glad they did, because I just felt like there's so much hidden talent and opportunity right in our own communities. And I wanted to be able to at least provide a space and opportunity for people that look like me or don't.
And that's a really important point that you make that I want to underscore, is the generational wealth that you were able to participate in and are now sharing back out to young artists that need a space, people that need that we all need connection, but especially the younger artists or entrepreneurs that are just starting out and need that physical space. So another project that you did just last year that we mentioned was I want to say Mattapan Love. Can you tell us more about that and the sort of mix of events and people that made that so special?
Oh man, yeah, Mattapan Love was great. It was an outdoor event. The hope was to do 4 outdoor events at Ryan Playground on River Street, but there was a lot of rain that summer. It was a collaborative grassroots initiative with Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council, CJ from UFI, and it was really just a way for us to, one, I guess, display that there's talent here, there's businesses here, there's small entrepreneurs here, and if you give us the opportunity to have more spaces, then we can occupy them. What really stemmed from that was the stone building that's located by the trolley is empty, and it's been empty for decades. If you've seen it, it has like a wrapper of like almost like a fake bike shop, and we wanted to utilize that space for like a welcome center, or to display art or to do more pop-ups. I would love to have more Ideal Mixers, even if it was right next door. Then it'll just make it more of like a artsy, creative neighborhood, and that's what we were trying to show. So we booked the space, and we had some vendors, and we had food trucks. We also had an art gallery provided by Design Museum Boston on the lawn of Ryan Playground. And the most beautiful thing about it was just that people who lived there for years just didn't even realize it was there. So it was just nice for them to be like, whoa, we didn't even know this was back there. And they're like, what is this water? And I'm like, the Napopsa River. Like, take a walk around, come back and get a smoothie from Cafe Juice Up. So it's just really a really inspiring type of thing. And like, the crowd wasn't like insanely crazy, but it was just the quality of the people, and like the vibe was just so right. And a lot of people were just very appreciative. So it's something that we hope to do again.
We're hearing that over and over again on these neighborhood calls. Is there's such a richness to Boston's neighborhoods and the people that live there. It just sometimes takes a couple organizers like yourself to say, hey, let's come together, let's celebrate, and by the way, look at all of us and what we have here as assets. Ayana, that leads me to some of the work that you've been doing recently, and wonder if you want to share both some of the artists that you have been part of and your community, any shout outs you might want to give, and then leading into some of the projects you've done that are also creating this real strong community support and vibe.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, you know, a lot of people are like, where are the artists or who are these artists in the neighborhood? And oftentimes you know, they're around us, but we just don't know where they are. So it's like you have to be connected to somebody to kind of know them. Because I've had plenty of people be like, where are the artists in Mattapan or Roxbury, and who are right here. So, you know, thinking of artists who've been doing this longer than I have, like Lawrence Pierce, Paul Goodnight, Stephen Hamilton, just it's so many, you know, wonderful artists. I know you guys have highlighted some of them with Now and There, but thinking locally to Mattapan, Barrington Edwards, Lana Jackson, Jackie Baptista. So there's so many of us around here. But again, it's just we have to make that effort, or people who are outside have to make the effort to intentionally, you know, communicate with us and find us. So yeah, those are some of the people that I'd like to shout out, and many more, many, many more.
There's so many more. We'll try and put their Instagrams in chat if we can as we go along. You've done two projects that I'd love to highlight.
Yeah.
Both the Wilson Street Garden and the pianos.
Yeah, so around 2016 and 2017, I did my public art projects. The first one in 2016 was with a celebrity series, and it was Play Me I'm Yours. So if you are a Bostonian or you're familiar with it, there were pianos all around the city, and people could play them. It was a temporary installation, and it was my first public art project. And it was really wonderful because I had the opportunity to obviously paint this entire piano, but the words were affirming quotes and inspirational words, in particular for my community, you know, for a community of color. So communities of color and Black communities. So I used African fabric for head wraps and afros, and it was directed, you know, to inspire other folks. So the great thing was this was placed in Eggleston Square in Roxbury, and we had a wonderful partnership with the Eggleston Square Main Street director, Luis Cotto. He's not with them anymore, but at the time he was very intentional about the way that the way this piano was placed in the space. So not only, you know, did we introduce, you know, did we connect, but he had students from Berkeley that he hired to play the piano, and he made a whole schedule. So it wasn't just the piano was placed, it was now, what do we do next, and how do we activate the space and show folks that, you know, we have musicians, we have artists. It was really beautiful. And the wonderful thing for me was I was able to see the power of public art as someone who created it from beginning to end. So I would go to the piano, and people didn't know I created it. So I kind of would watch them like a creep and see how they interacted. And it was
lurking.
It was, yes, I was lurking in the shadows. Well, not really the shadows, it was the daytime, but you know, I was lurking to see, and people were really into it and they were really excited. So that was like my first jump into public art, and it was very beautiful. And my next project was the Wilson Street Community Garden in 2017. And that one was very community driven, and it was organized and facilitated by Robin Gibson, who was a Mattapan resident. And she basically connected multiple grants to fund the project, to hire artists, and then in turn had a festival celebrating the space on Wilson Street. So she blocked off the street, she hired a DJ, local musicians, and it was just really, really wonderful seeing children, adults, everyone really out and excited about this garden in Mattapan. And I also worked alongside Liz LaManche, who we used sustainable materials to make planters and benches that people painted on. So it was this, again, another full circle moment of creating this work and then watching people interact with it. And again, community driven, because this is what they wanted. They wanted specific words. And I was the one who, you know, made that vision come to life, so.
We've touched on in our pre-call something that we all felt needed to be addressed here, and that is when we talk about what the community wants in public art. And Ayana, I think you give us really great examples here with the Wilson Street Garden of putting back the words and the images and the types of things that people want to see. There's also another type of public art, which you did with the piano, which is I'm the artist and I'm going to make something, and I hope the community likes it. And in the case of Roxbury Love, that work became beloved by the community, and it was temporary. always meant to come down. And then it came down in a very unceremonious and sort of, like, I will say, callous way, without direct communication to the neighbors or the communities, and it sounds like even to the city. So we don't need to go into there and get all of the emotions about what went on, but I do want to get your opinions about how we can do this process differently, how you did it in your work, both of you, either in organizing festivals or directly in making public art, and what's the role of artists in the neighborhood as we create ownership of public art or public initiatives. Mm-hmm. So either of you can jump in and give me your thoughts, please.
I mean, I can start and just say, I think for me, when just seeing it, I haven't had the opportunity to do a major public art, with the exception of, like, we had these bamboo sticks at Mattapan Love. It's just and that's something, like, again, we're grassroots, so we're like, we're putting up bamboo. Like, no one's gonna say anything to us, like, whatever. But I think when it comes to something that's, like, really public, well-known on, like, every website, and people are drawn to it, it's just like, one thing is just, like, what's the communication in terms of just, like, letting the community know, so it's like one last hurrah, so, like, you feel more included, right? I think that's the piece of people in general. It's like, we want to feel included, and when something like that happens, it kind of excludes us. So I don't necessarily have, like, the answers, but I think that was, like, one of my, like, questions and needs in terms of an art type of timeline, or a clock or something that can just say, and this is over, take your last picture as a community, because we're moving on. I think we understand that nothing's permanent, but there's still so much emotions and things that are tied to it, and just the season that we're in right now with the pandemic and the racial injustice is just, like, more sensitivity is needed, and more grace, is needed, and for us to just to be more, a little bit gentle. So that's my only thing that I really have to say on that one.
Yeah. I do agree with you, T. And I think, again, not getting into the details, but more so thinking about, how do you move from this space? Again, you feel your feels, but how do you move into a different space? And it's important for us to kind of move beyond it and start making actionable steps and having conversations that result in change. And so some of the things that I'm thinking about, is that we should really be thinking about owning these buildings and the spaces that we're painting on and we're painting in, and try not to be upset because the truth is we didn't own this space, Mm-hmm. So also education around temporary and permanent art in Boston, like, as artists, we may know this, but the general public doesn't really know this. They don't know the difference between acrylic and oil paint. So like, I think there is definitely education that has to come from an experience like this. And even moving forward with the developments and thinking about the spaces that are going up, are we hiring artists from the community in these buildings? Do we have artist galleries? Is that something that we should be asking for? So having these artist galleries, hiring artists from the community to run them, not as a one-time thing, but something that's permanent, and this really heavy community involvement, not just from, like, developers or those higher ups, but also from us as a community, right? Holding these folks accountable. So if they do say that they're gonna give us A, B, C, and D, we are not letting folks off the hook, that we're looking at contracts. We have our city folks involved with this. So we're being represented, we're being included in this conversation. And again, like, involving artists from the beginning. I think that art and design and things like that are often an afterthought, and we're like the bottom of the budget, when in reality, we need to be in the room at the beginning, because most of the time that marketing, that design, that art is what drives the traffic to this space or to this development. So that's a little bit of the feedback, not getting stuck in this one space, but more so, how do we move from it and become better for the next generation or for the next people, or for 10 years from now? So.
I appreciate the design thinking you both are bringing to this process and thinking about the end. I think oftentimes public art or any, festival or, even like planning a vacation, you're like, we're just going to do it.
Right.
And we don't think through all of the steps, who's going to maintain it. I was thinking of like immediately when you said there should be a countdown, I'm like, let's put a big clock up. Are there other,
that's great.
it's just rotating and it's like 100 more days, 5 more days, it's going to end. Are there other, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but are there other technology advances, things that we don't use out in public space that we're using in our everyday life that we should be thinking about?
I think technology is just like a beautiful thing, and especially when it comes to like notifications or subscriptions and subscribe, right? Like, or QR codes and scanning. And I think if like those types of things are kind of implemented, this is not just for Mattapan, by the way, this is just like a general conversation of like what could be done in terms of art. Like, it's just how it's curated in terms of that, like that could really help. Scan this QR code, learn more about the artist, learn more about the community that it's in, learn more whatever. But also maybe like subscribe when, this is coming down because this is temporary art. Sometimes I feel like it could be so quote unquote simple. But to Ayana's part, I feel like art is always like the afterthought, or creatives is like the afterthought. It's like, oh, this takes you like not a lot of time, right? You do this 10 minutes, right? And it's like, like, so I think that piece is like really important. It's like leveraging technology, especially in a time like this.
Yeah. So what if we can leverage this technology right now and get in the next 7 minutes or 6 minutes before we go to Q&A, let's talk about some opportunities where artists can get involved right now.
Sure, yeah. So one would be utility boxes. So I was able to get 8 utility boxes from the city of Boston. And what I would like to do, I know I'm really excited about it, what I would like to do is send out a list of all of the templates and colors so the artist can actually draw on the template and submit it for the community to vote on. The utility boxes are scattered all around Boston or Blue Hill Ave, which I think is kind of beautiful because when I first started, my hashtag was Art on the Ave. So now it's like actually coming through. So I can either leave my Instagram, which is the Ideal Mixer, and you'll be able to see my link tree. And that way, if you are an artist, you want to participate in painting a utility box, you will get paid. Then that would be the one opportunity right now.
Paying artists, always good.
Yeah.
Ayana, you had some pretty fabulous ideas when you were in grad school that have sort of almost manifested since 2011.
Yeah. So yeah, I had back in 2011, I had did a year of grad school at Suffolk in design, and my thesis was to use art as a tool to create change in communities of color with a focus on youth, because that's basically where I started, and it was the most impactful. So again, kind of the timeline. Artists for Humanity. Yep. Boston Arts Academy, so very young, very involved in these different spaces. And, my thesis was around basically, using the youth and solving issues and bringing awareness to problems that are around us. Again, using art as a tool. So for me, that really comes down to funding and space, right? I need some money to start and plan this out. So those are some of the things I'm kind of thinking about is like, for starting small, obviously in phases, and then moving out to something larger because it's so important. It's impacted me and plenty of others. I know AFH has an alumni program. I know artists who were not involved in AFH that were young and are still in the arts today. So it's very important to kind of tap into the young people around us.
There's a NEFA grant that maybe Leah can chat in. I don't know if you've seen it, for spatial justice. You should definitely check out as maybe seed funding for the idea.
Yeah.
There are also a lot of related organizations that are doing the sort of collaborative work that you guys are talking about that we all wanted to lift up, one being Urban Farm Institute. Are you guys both working with them? And are there any things that you're drawing from the work that they're doing that you can see as parallels to more art or art experiences in Mattapan?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to UFI for a little bit. I mean, I just love that there's an urban farm like right around the corner at Mattapan, right? I think it's just, I mean, it's something that I feel like is special because something that it's not expected. And they have a huge like program in terms of teaching people how to grow and how to farm. And they have a beautiful space inside that you can also rent. There's like literally a state-of-the-art kitchen, and it's gorgeous. Because I have space, I personally will connect with a lot of vendors, and last year they did a bazaar and they used some of our vendors and we just shared, and I think that was just really cool. They also did a lot of work with Powerful Pathways, Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council, and yeah, I would say those are like the two. I know Cato's on, so I'm gonna give shout out to Cato from Mattapan Arts as well. And the one last other one is Boston Rhythm dancer. She's a line dancer. They actually practice, or they used to practice across the street from us at Ideal Mixer. But I mean, there's just so many little groups in Mattapan, but you do have to be curious in order to scout that out. So
Great, thank you.
yeah.
If you could shout out one thing that someone not from Mattapan should not miss if they were to bike, car, trolley to Mattapan. And obviously Ideal Mixer being one of them. What's another?
So hard. There's so much like green space in Mattapan. Like, can I just say green space in Mattapan? Because there's so much of it that I just can't say one. But it would be like Ryan Playground, Alma Park, UFI, and I know that Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council, something that they need is food, right? So they're planning on doing like food forests. So they want to preserve the green space in Mattapan to make sure that people can be fed. So I'm just gonna say green space.
I think in terms of green space, for me, last year discovering the Neponset River Trail and finally riding my bike from Mattapan to Dorchester, and it's been really beautiful. Like I try to go like once a week or twice a week if I'm really in that space. But it's so beautiful. You don't feel like you're even in the city at all. You see bunnies on the little path, like it's crazy. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend doing that.
Thank you. We've got 2 questions already lined up. I know that Cato wanted to come on and may have a question. The first question into the Q&A is from Ron Newman. And Ron, we're going to open up your microphone and bring you on. Just bear with us as we figure out, there we go. It looks like you're unmuted. Go ahead and welcome, ask your question.
Well, I had 2 questions about buildings in Mattapan that could be art spaces. One of you mentioned the little building at the end of the trolley line in the Greenway, and it sounded like you had some short-term and some long-term plans for that, but I didn't quite know what was happening. The other is you've got an abandoned movie theater called the Oriental further up Blue Hill Avenue. Is there any possibility of turning that back into an art or performance space?
Yeah, so I can just answer the Mattapan, I forgot the name of it. We called it, someone help me.
The stone building?
Thank you. Yeah, the little stone building. That is actually a project that we were working on with CPA. They do Community Preservation Act. So I believe it's like 1% to 2% of our taxes get put into historical reservation and also outdoor spaces and affordable housing. So that's definitely one. We haven't really looked at the other one. I think for us, funding is just like the core thing. And then also like we definitely need more people to help. Most of the times it's so grassroots of the things that we do and how we do it. But that's actually a good spot to look into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a question from Rebecca Moore. And thank you, Ron. Rebecca, we'll get you on in just a second. I'll take you off mute and you may have to unmute yourself.
Got it. Okay.
You're good to go.
Great. Hi. Thanks so much for this. It's been really wonderful to learn about all of these neighborhoods as someone who's fairly new to Boston. I adore Mattapan. I ride my bike through Mattapan and along the Neponset Trail at least once a week, and just did it this morning in preparation for this meeting. So, a pleasure to jump on. So it's kind of a long question, but I think I hope it's manageable. I'm just curious how artists might be engaged in the beginning as the city of Boston is sort of gesturing toward racial equity. For example, declaring racism a public health emergency, allocating $12 million from police funding to public health work. I'm just wondering if there might be an opportunity to advocate for artists in these sort of renewed efforts at addressing racial justice. And so resources could include funding, could include studio, creative spaces, could include performance spaces, gallery spaces, housing, all that stuff. But as a priority in Boston's historically Black or Latinx neighborhoods. So that was my question. And without asking for more labor than is already being put in these efforts, what would you recommend to ensure that this type of advocacy also is driven by artists from the sort of research phase all the way through to programming and development?
I think for me, it would be like really working close with the main streets, because like that is the economic district. So having the economic district be heavily involved in the art space and making sure they're almost like the liaison between art and business, because it comes all in one hand in hand, right? When you drive through a neighborhood and you see like all this art, you're like inspired, or like greenery, and I think those really help with the main streets. So connecting with them as like the center pool. I mean, and obviously anyone could reach out to one of us, and it's not like we might know the answer, but we may know someone who does. So that's another option, and just like reach out and work alongside the people with you. I think most of the times, especially in communities of color, regardless if it's career, housing, what have you, it's like we're always trying to like work up, you know, because we need that visibility. And sometimes like you can do more power by working alongside other people and then showing them like, yeah, we're serious. So continue to help us and fund us so we can continue having these things in this neighborhood that everyone cherishes. I don't know if I answered that to your liking, but that's all I add.
That's great. Thank you.
Ayana, anything to add?
Yeah, I was thinking similar to you, Thuwaiba, around just working across communities, right? Like, or neighborhoods. We're all doing so many wonderful things in Roxbury, in Mattapan, in Dorchester. And what does that look like when we do it all together? Because I even just real quick, thinking about Roxbury and the Black Lives Matter mural that's, you know, in Nubian Square. And what does that look like if we partner with organizations in Roxbury and Mattapan who may, and I say this because I have friends who are more involved with different organizations or involved with the city, whereas I feel like I can produce the work. Others have, you know, they can kind of finesse and work with the city a little more. So utilizing each other's skills so that we get this stuff done. So again, not trying to do it alone, but making sure, oh, I know T is great at this and Ayana's great at this. How do we almost maximize on the things that we're great at to get some of these these questions answered and make sure these long-term goals are executed. You know, we end up on top, like Black communities end up in a better space.
There's been a lot of work by the city to do cultural mapping, and it sounds like there's also, we need to do individual mapping of our skills and know where and when to call. Thank you, Rebecca. That was a great and powerful question. Speaking of mapping and heat mapping, Cassandra would like to come on and have a question for us. Hello, we can hear you.
Hi, yeah. No, I didn't have any question. I just wanted to comment on the comfort station at the end of the Greenway. That's what it's called. And right, yeah. When they first closed the Greenway, we actually had been working with Dan Cullinane, the rep, and the DCR to try and put something up in there, and then they just stonewalled for so long. And Thuwaiba, congratulations. I've been trying to get the boxes for the last 15 years, and oh, there's no money, or there's no this, or there's no that. I don't know how many times I heard that, so I like one.
Okay, great, you got one.
And, Frugal Furniture, the Oriental Theater, that's actually where Capital Electric was, and now Frugal Furniture is. Before Frugal Furniture got in, there were many proposals, yes, to put it back into a art space, to make it into a mini mall, to put in a small screen theater, but commerciality, capitalism won. So what I think Mattapan needs is definitely the mapping. When I called the city and say, okay, we're the artists, there's only 11 artists in Mattapan.
What?
Right. So the mapping has to be improved.
Yeah.
And some of the things that have happened that we've done, like 10 years ago, we actually did a jazz festival. We had free jazz. We had an artist come in from New York, had it at the Foley building. It was a big thing. And then now last year they say, oh, the first jazz festival. No. You know, so it's really, in one way, it's, you know, people are building on our work. And in the other way, it's like, oh, we're just, you know, who brought up Mattapan as a good place to sit and be back in the 90s when we did the city spotlight program and had all that research done. So again, it's good to see people building on things, but then when they talk about if you don't know what's happened in the past, then you don't have a good outlook on your future. There are a lot of things that we specifically have done, African Repertory Troupe and Mattapan Cultural Arts Development, along with other neighborhood groups that have done art activities, and they're just forgotten. Or, you know, people do something and then say, oh, well, yeah, we're the first ones to do this. So just remember us old folks when you're bringing in the young folks.
I was just going to say that, Cato. When we did the Nubian Square Roxbury talk, it was much more intergenerational, and I see that as a challenge throughout Boston. A lot of these efforts have already been done, and it's not archived anywhere. So it does feel like oftentimes we're kind of repeating ourselves. I wanted to bring up the Rise, the pair of statues that were installed at the end of Blue Hill Ave in 2005 by Fern Cunningham and Karen Udemy, I think is how we pronounce her last name. Some more OGs that you know might not get as much attention today as they should. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. I mean, that also kind of gives me like another set of an idea in terms of technology and intergenerational. It's like, yeah, there is work. There's always work that has been done before us. There'll be work that's been done during us, and then definitely after us. But I think the beauty of technology is that we could archive them. And I think in terms of the city, it's like, is it valuable to you? Because you could hire us to do those things, right? There's a lot of times where we volunteer, put in our own money for certain things, because we just want to see it done. And it's always good, but I think to keep that going and thriving for the sake of our city, our one connected city, regardless of all the neighborhoods, I think hiring the talent that could produce and have the passion to keep these stories living is important. You have to do a lot of digging and finding. So that's a good point. Thanks, Kato, for saying all that.
Yeah, that was
Thanks,
really great
Kato.
and important, very important. So thank you.
We have two more questions already lined up. Next up, it went into the answered. Andrew Sharp will be bringing you on to ask your question. And then after that, Joe Madres.
Hi guys, I'm so glad
Hi.
I'm part of this discussion. I'm Andrew Sharp and I live in Mattapan and I run the Authentic Caribbean Foundation. Some of you guys probably heard of us. And I'm a very strong and vivid supporter of my Caribbean American community. We've been here, we are here to stay, and we need inclusion. Mattapan is where we reside heavily, between Mattapan and Codman Square. And I think that sometimes we have been forgotten at the table when discussion is being held. We've been doing some data gathering because we found that there's not a lot of data in our community that is readily available. I've even gone to the archives to dig up data on Caribbean American community from 1970s right up till current. So with regards to the arts, definitely recognition is definitely needed. In terms of engagement, Ms. Tenzin from Ideal Mix, we're open to collaborating with companies like yours. We just came out of June is National Caribbean American Heritage Month, which we're happy to see that the mayor and the councils have recognized Caribbean American community. But there's no rich art like Caribbean. I'm sorry, and our diaspora has brought a lot of that to America. And just thinking of a fish fry, if you go by the Chinese lady that sells fish right beside the post office, that's one thing you'll see the real thing happening right there with Caribbean folks and African American buying fish right there. There's so much that can be done to Mattapan. I would love for the Caribbean history to be preserved in these community areas. We know gentrification is happening, where a lot of Caribbean folks who used to reside in Mattapan now lives in Randolph. However, Caribbean American is the highest ownership in the city of Boston. And a lot of our Caribbean American folks own houses in Mattapan, Dorchester, Codman Square area. So we cannot be left out at the table when it comes to you know, the approach with regards to that. Another thing too is access to funding, and I know you guys spoke about it. There's a ton of artists that lives in our community. And again, I said, and I'll say it again, there's Haiti alone has tremendous painters when it comes to that. And a lot of them artists are here. We have some of them who are enrolled in the Berkeley College. But again, if you ask how much of grant money has gone to that community, some of these artists, very limited. So that's some of the stuff I want to really change in terms of the Caribbean American community, especially in Mattapan. More funding, more access to information, more training. I was on the phone with Mass Humanities, and we had a good conversation about being accessible to those grants for our community. So that's my two input. For me, the city of Boston needs to strengthen its engagement with organization like mine and others, I know there's a lot of Haitian organization on the ground doing work, bring us together. Let's be at the table, let's talk, let's see what is there that we can bring back to our community. And I am right now, as I said, working on the data to be able to share that so that the city can have more data on our community. The period that we came, how many population reside here, different nationality reside here, and so forth. And it's available because the census data is there. The census data is right there. So
thank you for that reminder. Thank you. And another good reminder to fill out the 2020 census so that we do have those numbers. When I was doing really cursory research on Mattapan, the numbers were saying like 77% of residents were African American and Caribbean, but it wasn't breaking down. So that data will be very helpful. Ayana or Thuwaiba, any responses?
No, I think that was beautiful, Andrew, and I would love to connect with you and work with you as well. So I just looked you up online, and feel free to, I can email you, you can email me, but yeah, definitely, let's connect.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm on your list, sir. Thank you. I get very informative emails from you, so thank you for keeping me informed too.
Yeah. And I'm so pleased to see at least if somebody's talking about Mattapan, because you know it's like you know it is. They always playing Mattapan. And there's so much we can do to uplift our community and just bring about that vibrant culture, that vibrant thing that
absolutely.
I mean, it's so unique. I mean, just look at the Neponset River, the historical, you know, from when Jews were there and then we came in and occupied the area and, you know, start to create our own. And then now the big influx of the Haitian population into the community. So there's so much.
There's so much, and we want to celebrate that and also preserve it. I know there's probably some more questions that we've got about development, which is coming along to Mattapan just as it has a lot of other neighborhoods in Boston. I haven't been able to, Joe, read your question fast enough and process it all, so please come on. We're bringing you on, and we'd love to hear this from in your voice.
Yeah, it's great to be part of this conversation. So just a little bit of backstory for me to put my question into context. I moved to Boston 2 years ago. My husband and I recently bought a house on the edge of Mattapan in Rossi. We've been here for a year, and I'm a past artist, art educator, art teacher, nonprofit art education leader, and now I'm in a doctoral program studying arts and education. And I'm curious about the intersection between the arts, especially community and collaborative arts initiatives, and education initiatives about inequity, racism, systemic racism, social injustice, and using the arts to combat those things, and using the arts to engage communities in conversation and action around those topics. So I'm really interested in getting more involved in what might be going on already in this area and possibly being, assisting in some way in creating new initiatives that are needed in that area. So that's what my question is around. I share the fear about, market ideology and a push for, leaders in communities to do things with the main objective to raise, to have their businesses be successful, which is not wrong. It just tends to, have side effects on those communities that were not intended and that sometimes damage the communities themselves. We talk about gentrification. So it also happens in education, but there's different pools of funding for education initiatives. And so I'm wondering basically what is already going on? What are the most dire needs for education initiatives that involve the arts for social change? And what kind of skills or experiences are needed from people who want to get involved?
Thank you. Ayana, do you want to maybe try the arts and education question, since that is pretty close to your heart?
Yeah, so I haven't been super, involved in organizations specifically around like social justice. I know of some like people doing the work. So I think my recommendation would definitely to, if it's not in Mattapan, to connect with another organization. I'm thinking of something Chanel Thurgood runs. I don't know if she's with them anymore, and possibly ICWA, where they do, I know that they are in arts and can probably speak to that. Yes, they can speak to that a little bit better. So I can't give too much information around that, but I would recommend connecting with them because they're directly in that space, in education and arts. My background, I feel like, is more designy, whereas they're definitely in that space.
Okay. Can someone type the name so that I make sure to get them right?
Yeah, and I would just add, like, I mean, even the people who just spoke today, like Cato, like she's right here in Mattapan. Andrew Sharp, we just heard of him. And also, I don't know if she's on, but Powerful Pathways, Alensa, I think, I mean, even including ourselves, I mean, the things that you bring to the table are the things that we need, right? Because there's certain things that we just don't know. But we're just trying to make it a point to be like, well, we're not going to stop until we get it. So there might be definitely a more efficient way of doing that we're not familiar with.
Yeah.
So, earlier in the call or pre-call, Kate was like, so what do you guys need? And I was like, there's 3 C's. Now I figured it out. And it's like communication, cash, and collaboration. Like that's it. The 3 C's. So, but that's really cool. And welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any other questions? There's a flurry of chat that was happening that I didn't quite get. But it looks like we got to most of these. Maybe a little more. Let's pick back up on the 3 C's: communication, cash, and collaboration. Cash is short right now for everyone. Collaboration is happening in weird ways. I'm expecting something to happen here with Joe. There's got to be. How can we better communicate right now with each other and with people who are, not in our immediate neighborhood, but are within our immediate, Boston, and the same. The point of this series is to show every neighborhood is so different, and yet when we go to make a check on a vote, we need to be thinking about our collective. So any putting you on the spot, last thoughts about how we can better communicate right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think like certain things would be, if it had to be more of like a city initiative, if I wanted to start there, it would be like, more kiosks, like virtual boards that show you information, directories, information about what kind of grants are out and what opportunities are happening and all that stuff. Is like very scarce in Mattapan, if any at all. So certain things like that from the city standpoint, like those are fairly easy to be implemented. You'll see some things that will like kind of get plopped in the middle of the median that's like, hey, don't forget, like, wear a face mask, or like 2020 census, but something that's more, curated based off the needs at time. Email is always a good way. Printing is really expensive, but that's also another way. But I think from the city's perspective, I think something that's more like virtual where people can see it outside, whether they're standing at the bus stop or, eating a hot dog at Simcoe's, they can see something and engage with it, and actually be like pleasantly surprised.
But do you think it should be a city piece?
No,
okay, good.
No, I don't think it's a city's responsibility.
Yeah.
But in terms of like technology and things that are in city's property, I think that's just an opportunity for us to utilize that as another digital platform. If that's one thing. There's definitely several lists that are out there. Ayana's working with the group right now called Boston While Black. There's the other Boston. Things like that is definitely grassroots. That's still happening. I feel like that's always been happening. But in terms of like resources and technology on city property, I feel like that's something that could be implemented if that's something that, you know, they're curious of. How can we communicate better with the neighborhoods and the communities?
Yeah, even thinking about communication, I feel like my being connected to the arts community in Boston really happened when I joined certain email lists, right? So like in 2016, I did a fellowship with the Arts and Business Council. And then from there, I was connected with a group of folks and connected with Candelaria High, who has this like massive connection to arts and culture in Boston. And I feel like her list in particular has always like, she's always emailing, always sharing. So it's like, how can we do that like on a larger scale? Like, are there, you know, is there a list that we can be a part of, that we can share this information with other people about? Are we thinking outside of our neighborhood? Like just in terms of communication, email has been best right now, but if there's a way to do, you know, what Candelaria is doing, what others are doing, and kind of mesh it all together, it'd be really, really great. Because again, across neighborhoods, we're doing really wonderful work, but we have no idea what's happening over there unless we intentionally are seeking it out, or we have that middle person that is taking the moment to be like, oh, Now and There has this event. If you're not in the email list, you should attend it. So we need this like really this better effort, you know?
Yeah.
Because even now on this call, learning about Andrew and learning the history, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I even have some work to do, but it's very exciting because again, we're doing this work in different spaces, but we have to find a way to put it together.
To collaborate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got two more quick questions I want to bring in. We're going to bring in Kenya Beeman. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Not so much a question, but just wanted to just quickly make a comment that, well, first off, I'm Kenya Beeman, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the Boston Planning and Development Agency, also known as the BPDA/BRA. And I just kind of wanted to note that we're presently undergoing a plan initiative in the Mattapan community, as I've mentioned in the chat. And so a part of that, we've had a lot of conversations around art programming, public art, and anything around the arts in the Mattapan area. And so a lot of times, you know, trying to kind of get the resources of who the artists are, what they actually do, and what have you, we want to collect that data so when resources do become available, we know exactly who to reach out to. So I really didn't have a whole lot to say, but just that I wanted to introduce myself. And anyone who has any questions about Plan Mattapan, I left my email in the chat. Please reach out to me anytime. And we can also chat about arts or anything else beyond that. But yeah, I would love to get all the resources you guys spoke about. If you could email them to me so that way we have them. So when, again, resources are available, we can reach out to the people.
Excellent, thank you. And you have there's something in August coming up too?
Yeah, so we have,
open...
Yes, I'm glad thank you. I almost forgot about that. So
I did my research.
On August 5th, the Plan Mattapan Initiative is having a meeting to talk about corridors in the Mattapan area. Corridors are pretty much a long stretch of road like Blue Hill Avenue, Clemens Highway, River Street, and Morton Street. And so this is basically like a follow-up to a meeting that we had on February 27th this year to talk about what residents would like to see along those corridors. And it could be anything from art to housing to, you know, businesses and anything beyond that. So we encourage you to join us. All the information is online on bostonplans.org.
I'm dropping it in the chat right now.
Oh, you're so awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll try and share as much as we possibly can with you so this
Awesome.
all can happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then lastly, and I know we're running out of time, so anyone that needs to jump, please do. I just want to bring in Candelaria Silva Collins, excuse me.
Hi, everybody. What I wanted to say, hi, the Creative Entrepreneur Fellowship that Ayana was in will be taking applications again. If you go to the Arts and Business Council, it's not open yet, but it will be open. We'll start reviewing in September, do the call in September. You can also always contact me through my website, candelariasilva.com. I think that internet access is something that we really need, particularly since a lot of people are not feeling comfortable or not able to go to the cafes and stuff around town. I found internet access has been a phenomenal issue among artists. We've had people who weren't able, who got into Creative Entrepreneur Fellowship, but weren't able to take advantage because they were going to the library once a week to read emails, and that's just not going, they miss opportunities that way. I believe I create I have lists of photographers, lists of graphic designers, lists of makers. I created those myself and I maintain those databases. You can do the same. I believe in sharing opportunities, and if it's an opportunity that you want for yourself, give yourself 2 days head start, apply for it, and then send it out to the universe. It definitely come back to me. And finally, I encourage you all, in today's Globe, there's a column about Beyond Walls, which did all the beautiful murals out in Lowell. They've actually started making hand washing stations and dividers that look better than the Jersey barriers, and they've gotten customers, so they're using artists and they're doing commerce, and it was just a great model. And I think that's the kind of thing that artists in the community of color and different geographical neighborhoods in Boston could also sort of doing things that really are serving a need in this moment that's outside of what you expected to do. That's it. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you, Candelaria. Always a wealth of both resources and inspiration. We do need to put these ideas out to the universe and make them manifest. Once again, an hour goes way too fast, and it's hard to wrap this all up, but I do hear, Thuwaiba, your communication, cash, and collaboration, and in these times of social distancing, communication might not just be email, because not everyone's going to have it, but maybe it is those signs in the middle of the median that usually tell you to wear a mask. Maybe it's, did you know this is coming, apply now. It's going to take all levels, and each of us knowing what we're good at and how to keep pushing this forward. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this really inspiring conversation. We'll end with our thanks. Now and There relies on the funds of many generous foundations. NEFA's Fund for the Arts and the Boston Foundation give ongoing support, especially during this pandemic, which has helped us produce this series. And with their support, we can make these recordings available online. We will share as much information as possible with all, and we pay each participant a living wage. So thank you again for all of you for joining us today. If you have a few more minutes now, we'd love your feedback. We might have something stuck in the chat for a survey. We might not have gotten to that today, but we do hope you'll come back next Thursday, August 6th, same time, same place, as we ask the question and move all the way across the city to what does South Boston need right now? Well, special guests, artist Michael Dowling and community leaders Denise Capers, to talk about the neighborhood of South Boston. So I hope you all join us. Thank you again, Thuwaiba, Ayana, and I wish you all an amazing day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.